two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, and as we gather around the fireplace tonight, we have continued our Christmas cheer as we are spreading it around to you all with a nice little ditty of a film here. Heading over to our good friend Jake, who brought it to our attention. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this film and what it's all about?
Alrighty. This film just screams Christmas cheer, as you can tell from the image there. It is a film that came out in 2020. A film directed by Eshom and Ian Nelms called Fatman. And Fatman, per IMDb, a rowdy, unorthodox Santa Claus is fighting to save his declining business. Meanwhile, Billy, a neglected and precocious 12-year-old, hires a hitman to kill Santa after receiving a lump of coal in his stocking. Now, the first time I ever heard about this movie, I looked it up immediately on IMDb, and they had one sentence. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was, but it was so hilarious. I was like, I will see this movie. But they changed it almost immediately, and they've changed it again. That what I just read is not what they had up for a while. But anyway, so we've got basically this. It's a dark, kind of a dark thriller. That, as you can tell from that little description, is a little bit off the beaten path. And so I'm going to go around and see what y'all think of this one. I'll start with you, Dave. Is this your first time seeing this movie?
In fact, yes, it is. I meant to see it 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago when it first came out. I know I procured a copy of it somehow, but I lost it amongst my digital files. But I reacquired it and found it to be different. I like Mel Gibson, even though I know he's gotten a bad rap for all of his bull. Okay. Deep down, I do think he had some anger issues that I think he dealt with. Unfortunately, he is not Hollywood's favorite actor since those incidents in the streets and all that jazz, if you get my drift. So, here we have him in a role where he plays Santa Claus. And it's a little bit different. You said rowdy. I didn't consider him rowdy. I just considered him bleak, I would say. Almost Dickensian bleak. You know?
Right.
He's foul-mouthed. He has lost the spirit of Christmas, along with, other people. And unfortunately, he is, see, in this particular film, they're kind of like regular people, they, they almost take the magic away of the Santa Claus and make them out to be like regular struggling people with a factory to boot that has, the elves working for them and all that jazz. I don't want to go into the whole darn thing, but
we'll
it
do that.
all is kind of opaque and dark and a little dreary. But I liked it ultimately in the end. To me, it's a great contrast between Violent Night and this movie. I mean, if you put the two together, those are like probably going to be holiday classics like 20 years from now.
Now that Santa is one I would call rowdy.
Yeah, that one I would. But this one happened before that. So I think it kind of flew under the radar, literally speaking, because we didn't really see any reindeer. Not really. At least not that I remember. I thought I saw something in the trailer about reindeer, but when it came to the actual movie, I didn't see any reindeer. But other than that,
you did see when he went into the workshop building, he goes into what looks like stables. So it definitely looks like there were reindeer, but yeah, they weren't really featured in the movie.
No, there was something in the trailer where he said something to someone. Oh, yeah. You better be glad that was Dasher, because if it was Dancer, he would have given you a load of shit or something like that. And that's one thing I didn't see in the movie.
No, I know what moment you're talking about. That was in the film.
I didn't see it anywhere. Maybe I got to rewatch it. But
it was what was it he said? It was something like yeah, he's like he would have tore your package right off.
Yeah.
Just not sure where it was. So
yeah.
I was looking for it, and I know I saw it in the trailer. But other than that, at least, but in any case,
it was in the. It was
makes you wonder if he like turned.
That part was in the film where the two guys walk into the barn.
Okay.
And they're trying to get him to take a 15-year deal.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Well, in any case, that's my thoughts. I didn't want to tell the whole story, but I enjoyed it. It definitely was different, and I wonder if there's a bit of Krampus in our jolly good Saint Nick here. But anyways, move on.
Alrighty. And of course, spoiler alert, people. Spoiler alert. Y'all know how we work. We rarely give you the spoiler alert ahead of time, but we will cover most plot points. Probably not all, but a good number of them. So you are warned. All right. Brandon, how about you?
Well, this was not my first watch, but you know that. I heard about this about the same time you did, but I don't remember if one of us encouraged the other to watch it. If it was, you encouraged me to watch it, but I don't remember.
This was one that we found out about it when we were doing our
oh yes, okay, yeah,
previews.
So we did find out about it together. It was
right.
And I liked it. I thought it was fun. It was well worth watching. I enjoyed having it as a film in the collection, and if anything, I really didn't have much else to say about it because I really liked it, but it's a lot darker and grittier than Violent Night. I didn't think that what I really wanted from this film was Violent Night until I actually saw it. And then, oh my gosh, Violent Night is like the perfect version of this film. But this film still is fun to watch, and it's enjoyable. And I like watching the little asshole in the end get his comeuppance.
Yes.
And that is all I got to say about that.
And real quick, I'm going to throw out, just since you mentioned that, Walton Goggins, our assassin, who is apparently known as the Thin Man until he is finally addressed by name at the end of the movie. He has the identification that comes up on his phone when the kid calls him is little shit.
Little shit.
And I got to admit, he could not have picked a better phrase.
Well, I'm coming from this as recently rewatching Ant-Man and the Wasp Woman, where I actually saw the bad guy be one of the bad guys in that film.
Please insert media to continue.
Oops.
What? All right. So, Brandon, I guess that was your whole thing. Tammy, is this your first time with this movie, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's my first time. I thought it was pretty good. I was just, I guess it kind of caught me off guard because, I was like, I can't believe what this kid was asking and why he was, and then the bad guy, just how, I guess, bad he was. It was just like, oh, okay, boom. Okay, boom, he was just like, shoot anybody, I wasn't expecting that part, he just didn't seem to care,
Right.
But I liked that. I guess you want to say Santa was basically just some down to earth guy with a wife, and I did like that part of it, So, but yeah, it was enjoyable. It just a few things kind of like, what, caught me off guard.
Good deal. Was that it for your first impression?
Yeah, for right now.
Okay. Now, one thing I will say about this movie is that I feel like it caught a lot of people off guard. My brother, when he watched it with me this time, he had a similar reaction to what I originally did, which was that wasn't really what I expected. And again, I think Brandon, I'm going to agree with you on this. Obviously, I saw this before Violent Night. But now that you mention that and you got the idea in my head, yes, I think Violent Night is more what I would have expected with this movie. One thing I did not expect when I first saw this was my second viewing. We found out about it when we were doing we did those previews for a while on the channel where we'd let people know what was coming in the coming weeks, basically. And we saw Fatman, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And I looked it up, and again, that one line, whatever that one line I read, I was sold. I was like, I've got to see this movie. And I actually, if I remember correctly, I think I had actually already purchased it before I saw it, or it might have been right after. I know I actually watched a library copy this time, or I opened my copy to watch it this time. So that was definitely a first viewing of my copy. But I think I had bought it from the I think I had rented it from the library, checked it, you know what I mean, checked it out. And I think I bought it like right away because I found a good deal on it or something. So it's been sitting here unwatched for a couple of years. So one of the reasons I picked it was I was hoping that I would be able to get it watched, and sure enough, I did. And strangely enough, both times I watched this with family, and it seemed to go over fairly well. Now, of course, we also watched Violent Night together as a family, so I don't know, maybe maybe y'all rubbing off on me is starting to rub off a little bit. But I will say with this one, I think Mel Gibson does a great job with the role. And I think Walton Goggins was perfectly cast as the Thin Man, as the assassin. Both of them were spot on. Marianne Jean-Baptiste as Mrs. Claus, she is wonderful. The kid that plays Little Shit is I'm just going to call him that. That's his name, Little Shit. Chance Hurstfield plays his name's actually Billy Weenan. That kid did a great job with the role. You see him, you're like, I can't wait for something bad to happen to this kid. It's like and I agree with Brandon. The way the movie comes to a close is just wonderful. But I was taken aback. I was surprised, genuinely surprised at how rooted in the real world this story is. As insane as the basic premise of a kid taking a hit out on Santa is, the idea that Santa and the missus have a factory in Alaska, North Peak, Alaska, which is kind of nice. And that I love the way they describe what happens to the letters from the kids. Like they're all sent mysteriously to this P.O. box, and all the postmasters know the P.O. box, but they know nothing beyond that. And just, I really like how they have that set up. It actually is. This may be the one movie I've seen where that's explained satisfactorily in a way that doesn't involve magic. So I kind of like that. I think that was kind of cool. And overall, this is more of a magical realism film than a film full of, like, even Violent Night had more like straight up magic in it, than this one does. So I like that. I like that approach. Does it make for a warm and fuzzy movie? No. The film
it's for kids.
For kids. There are surprisingly there are a few warm and fuzzies to be had.
For kids.
No. There actually is, like Santa. I guess you could say Santa is on a search for hope. Like he is desperately trying to get back to the way he was, but he's really pessimistic for the first half of the film. Let's put it that way. So it's interesting seeing that take on Santa. Overall, I thought it was an interesting movie. It is violent and bloody, but not enough to really send up my red flags all that much. It's funny, but not super funny. It's more like dark humor scattered throughout. It's, again, not exactly what I was expecting, but It's good. I like it, and again, it stands alone as a very different Christmas film overall. Let's see here. So now that we got that out of the way, elaborate a little bit on what IMDb says. So, and I agree with Dave. This was not a particularly rowdy Santa. I think IMDb kind of misspoke a little bit there. Unorthodox, yes. And he certainly gets rowdy when he's forced to. When he is protecting the homestead, he's a bit of a badass in those scenes. But I guess you could say
kind of a western in a way with that showdown.
Yeah. And actually, it's appropriate because you mentioned Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you're right. I'd forgotten Walton Goggins was in that. What I usually think of when I think of him is The Hateful Eight, which is weird because I did not like that movie, and I've only seen it once. But I do remember him distinctly from the film. And he's really good at these kind of roles. So let's put it that way. But basically, so the gist of it is that Santa's workshop is a business. He is subsidized by the government, by the U.S. government, based on how many toys get produced and delivered.
Yeah, he basically gets a government check like everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really interesting because, they straight up acknowledge that, they as much as acknowledge, but then when he's talking to the wife, he's very explicit about this, that like he is kind of the single greatest economic stimulus in the country, and yet he doesn't get to really reap the rewards from that. It's like the government that does because of all the taxes and whatnot. Again, the movie goes into some interesting territory. But basically, because his subsidies have fallen dramatically because kids just don't believe in Santa anymore, and even the ones that do, they're not earning it. Let's put it that way. It's basically a lack of general faith in Santa, a lack of general Christmas spirit, a overall increase in juvenile delinquency and crime and all that stuff has led to Santa is giving out fewer and fewer toys and more lumps of coal. And because of this, it's kind of a snowball effect. You see the one kid in the movie, but chances are there are a lot of other kids who had a similar, not obviously the same reaction of hiring a hitman, but like maybe they decided that, from here on out, screw Santa. I'm not going to believe in Santa anymore. So it's sort of a snowball effect, a spiral downward, and it's gotten so bad he can barely keep the lights on in the factory. Can barely keep them on. They're swimming in red. So their contacts with the government bring a military contact up with a proposal, which at first Santa and Mrs. Claus wanted nothing to do with this proposal, but then they kind of have to take it. And they call the elves back, and for a couple of months, they are going to build control panels for fighter planes instead of toys. And that will give them a great deal of funding from the military, which, of course, none of them want to do. When Santa announces this to the elves, it was a great moment for Mel Gibson. He is actually, he got tears in his eyes. He can barely choke out what he's telling them because it's hurts him so badly. I like that scene. I thought that was a good scene. I felt like it was probably meant to be emblematic of like a corporate takeover of any factory.
I felt bad when the bells were cut off.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I have to cut off your bells.
Yeah, for security reasons.
To set off the metal detectors.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the elves seem to settle in pretty nicely. Seven, who's the foreman, he seems to take to it pretty well, and actually, I really like some of his scenes with the was a colonel or whatever it is, the military liaison, captain. I don't remember his rank. I don't know if y'all do. It's Captain Jacob. Yeah. But where Seven is explaining their diet to him and they're having a little debate about it, I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But so there's that. That's the basic setup, the basic premise for Santa Land. Let's put it that way. Basically, they're on a big complex up in northern Alaska, and it's just this big. But it doesn't really look unusual. Like if you driving by,
looks like a sprawling farm.
Exactly. Yeah, it looks like a farm more than anything.
A ranch.
Yeah, probably more a ranch. I doubt you have much of a farm up in in the Arctic Circle, but anyway, so we go to the second part of it, and actually the movie kind of sets up all three of the main characters kind of in the beginning without, I don't know what y'all would say is the point, but what point in the movie did they even come right out and tip their hand as to who Santa is? And it's not right away. Like they have a couple of scenes, they have one or two scenes with Kris Kringle where,
he's just known as Chris to some people.
Exactly. They've got a couple of scenes of him where you really don't even know, like if you know the premise of the film, if you know who he's playing, but if you're coming to it completely blind, you're flipping through the channels and you see it on TV, you'd probably go through the first scene, maybe two with Mel Gibson without having any idea that he's Santa,
He's
kind
some
of
old
interesting.
Roger in a red Ford.
Right. Which kind of is amusing to me because I used to have, I still have the, on Alan Jackson's first Christmas CD, he had a song called "Santa's Going to Come in a Pickup Truck," and I always think of that song when I see those scenes of him driving around. It's like, but anyway, so we're also introduced to Billy, little shit, who's getting ready for a science fair. And he's dressed to the nines in a little suit, and he's got his hair perfectly coiffed, and he's got 4 blue ribbons on his lapel. And it's like, oh my God, why would you go to one of these with your previous ribbons on you? I mean, does that not scream vanity? But his grandma's getting them all ready, and she's clearly old and infirm, and it's I don't remember if we find out in that scene, but we find out quickly that he has an absentee father, basically lives with his grandmother and a bunch of maids who he orders around like, watch any scene with him and the maids, and you're like, who's this kid think he is? But even with the grandmother, I think it's that first scene where when he leaves, she's real sweet. She's like, could you bring me a glass of milk? And he's like, okay, grandma. And then he goes downstairs and just barks orders at the maids. And then finally he's like, oh, and take grandma some water, some milk, take grandma some milk. And it's like he couldn't even be bothered to do it himself. And then we're introduced and then you go to the science fair, and we're introduced to the Thin Man, Walton Goggins' character, who seems to have a little shop, if you will, and someone brings him a baseball bat, and he has this really interesting way of examining the item, where it's obvious he does not want to leave any traces of himself. He wears gloves and all this stuff, but he examines the bat. He sees that it has Santa's workshop stamped on the bottom, and he makes the dude an offer for it, or he lets the guy claim and then be. So you're like, oh, is he running some kind of weird pawn shop or something?
So what do you want for it? I want $2 grand.
Yeah, it's like, I think he said, I'll give you 900.
Yeah.
Which, but then you see him take it into this weird complex, and it's like, well, this is not. If this is a pawn shop, this is a weird ass pawn shop. But eventually, we find out.
Kind of like his own private collection of.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. We find out that he has this weird. He has this weird fixation on Santa. It's a weird fixation. It's he has this one little toy car that he keeps on a place of honor. And we eventually find out that it was the only thing that Santa ever brought him. And he apparently went bad early on. And he has become this complete amoral. Brandon, would sociopath be the correct term here?
Yes.
Yes. He basically is just a complete sociopath, but he has that weird fixation on stuff that comes from Santa. And then you have the little kid who loses. He's runner-up at the science fair, and he is apoplectic with rage. He actually calls this guy, who we come to find out does more than just collect toys and other paraphernalia. He is a let's say a businessman of ill repute.
Although I do have to say, the little hamster, his pet hamster, is cute.
Yes, and that leads to an interesting scene later on where a pet store owner is trying to. She is insistent that, I don't think a hamster is really your pet. You seem more like a reptile guy, which is not wrong, but it's also maybe not the right thing to keep insisting on when someone keeps telling you no. I like the hamster. And finally, she's like, no, you want a snake. And he's like, he just looks at her, snakes eat hamsters. And he just gives her a look like he could do the same to her if she, and then she keeps going. And then he interrupts and he's like, you remind me of my mother. She also never knew when the hell to shut up. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's and what was the other thing? I feel like he said two things: that she never knew when to shut up, and it was something else.
She never knew when to listen and never knew when to shut up.
She didn't listen very well and never knew when to shut up. That's what it was. Yeah. And the woman just looked at him.
I found it was.
What's that?
I found what was kind of interesting is, the hamster was a dwarf hamster.
Yeah.
That's what kind of hamster it was. It's a dwarf hamster.
Yeah. Which makes it even weirder for him because it's so tiny and seemingly helpless,
Well, you get it, elves, dwarf, hamster, That's why I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
You had a little bit of Middle Earth in there.
Well, at least he had at least that quality that was like, okay, well, that's at least some redeeming quality, which made him more likable than the kid.
Yes.
Who was totally unlikable.
Yes. Well, it's like also, though, it's reminding me what you just say. It kind of reminds me a little bit as well of Leonard Smalls in Raising Arizona. He had that remorseless hitman who had the little bronze baby shoes hanging from his, and then there was that phrase in the movie that it's a hard world for the little things, It's
yes.
But of course, in this one, the reason the little shit calls him is they kidnap the girl who won the science fair and basically threaten her with torture and worse if she does not admit to cheating. And of course, later in the movie, he does receive his new ribbon and a letter of apology from the judges, which made him happy. But actually, yeah, when the Thin Man is dropping the girl off after having tortured her and scared the living crap out of her, he wishes her a Merry Christmas, and he actually seems to mean it. Like he's kind of letting her know that it was just business. You know what I mean? Like he had nothing personal against her. And also later when he approaches the kid and ends up buying that plane off of him, for a minute there, you almost think he's going to kill the kid, but he doesn't. It's like he does kill everything that moves, but he seems to leave kids alone for the most part. So I guess he does have some lines he doesn't want to cross. So I guess that's something. But
hey, something.
Right.
Like I say, I don't consider him necessary. He's a bad guy, no doubt about it.
No.
But he is. It's sad that the kid is so unlikable that we can actually find one or two likable things about this dude. Right. And enjoy that. I mean, yeah, that's hard to. So yeah. He's a bad guy, but
in a good way.
Right. Well, for the purposes of the plot, though, given how much time is spent with him and or the kid, one of them had to be half decent, or it would just really been an even darker movie. You know what I mean? Like, if they were just both totally irredeemable, it would have made things a whole lot rougher, I think. But, with him, you don't want to see him win, but you're kind of glad that he got to mostly. I mean, I was a little upset with quite how high the body count got, but well, here's another thing. He remorselessly and without hesitation picks off all the soldiers, everyone at the workshop who is military, but he doesn't seem to be targeting the elves. Like, he probably killed a few of them, but you don't see him target them the way he does the military. So, like I said, I guess he had standards of a sort. But anyway, we're getting way ahead plot-wise. But I guess we've already gone into character a little bit. So I guess we'll finish that up real quick. Anything more that we got to say about the Thin Man? Let's see if I can find his actual. What was his actual name? It was or Skinny Man. Sorry, is what he's credited as. because again, Santa does actually address him by name when they finally come face to face. I can't remember his name. But I think that's the only time. I think that's the first time that does happen. Because I believe when the little kid is talking to his chauffeur, he says something like, "That friend of ours," I think is how they, or the chauffeur says it to him. Like, I think that was how they introduced him, was "that friend of ours."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, anyone have any further thoughts on him, or for that matter, the kid?
I think that the guy's name for the kid on the phone is the appropriate name. That's
Yes,
good.
the kid was a little shit. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, I agree. He was like a little Damien. Except, you know what? In Little Monsters, he reminded me of Boy, just a little bit.
Okay.
The guy in charge of the underground. But yeah, other than that, it was a little sad.
Yeah. And now I will say this: he is resourceful, he is clever, he is intelligent, but he is also an amoral little shit who very nearly resorted to poisoning and bumping off his own grandmother, which we'll get to that later on. But yeah, and again, he had that girl captured and threatened her with torture. He had, when the skinny man dropped her off, he said that, if you tell anyone what happened, I will kill your mother, I will kill your father. Do you have a dog? She's like, yes. What's your dog's name? And she gives the dog's name. I will kill your dog. And it's like, and then, like I said, as she's walking away, he wishes her a Merry Christmas. But he makes very clear to her that she needs to be quiet. But he wouldn't have done that at all if the kid hadn't hired him to do it. That is how low that kid is willing to stoop to win a science fair. Like,
yeah, but he kind of wanted to do it anyway.
I think Brandon alluded to this already, maybe Dave, but I think Brandon, that the kid was actually signing his grandmother's checks.
Yeah.
And that was how he hired the hitman in the first place.
But she starts to figure out towards the end of it.
Yeah,
but,
that's when he decides to bump her off, is when she realizes that people have been taking her money. Yeah, it's... and like I said, he basically treats the maids like slaves. He's very rude to them, very... yeah. And again, he hired a guy to kill Santa because he got a lump of coal in under the tree.
How did you like your Christmas present from his dad?
What's that?
Now the teddy bear.
How'd you like your Christmas present
Yeah.
from his dad?
Teddy bear.
Yeah, given again, he does have an absentee father who's so out of touch. He just randomly sends a teddy bear a week after Christmas. Yeah, I could see why the kid is pissed, but
maybe he is not old enough to accept the teddy bear as a present.
Yes. Yes. But this is a kid who he makes Kevin McAllister look well adjusted and or I will admit he would be right at home with the family in Violent Night.
Yeah.
Although, if I recall correctly, he might be even more evil than most of them were. And they were not pleasant people. They were not pleasant people mostly, but Actually, wasn't it? I'm remembering correctly? Am I remembering correctly that Beverly D'Angelo is like the matriarch of that family?
Yeah, I believe so.
Which was a great bit of stunt casting, actually. But yeah, she is a rotten piece of work in that film. But I'd be willing to say this kid could give her a run for her money. that's how bad he is. The hitman's actually more on par with the rest of that family. But anyway, so that's them. So let's move up to the workshop to Chris and the missus. Again, Chris Kringle, Mel Gibson, and the missus is Marianne Jean-Baptiste, which I will admit also, having her basically, I could be getting this wrong, and I hope I'm not, but I'm wanting to say they basically played her as West Indian in this film. Maybe not quite, but I know she is British by nationality, but I didn't feel like the accent was British. But it's definitely a non-traditional portrayal for both characters, really. But definitely for the missus, because, old white guy, that's been done quite a few times for Santa. But strangely enough, despite the film's title, Mel Gibson looks a little pudgy in this, but he doesn't look all that fat. But again, what do y'all's take on them? Like, I personally loved them as a couple. I thought they were a really great couple, long-suffering, but not really because of each other so much as the situation, but they're still there for each other. And it's, so like I said, I thought they were a really fun couple. But what do y'all think about Santa and the missus, generally and as a couple, I guess you could say?
I think they're a good couple. I mean, there's support there, and support's what's needed really a lot of the time when it comes to these things.
Indeed.
What about you, Tammy? I know you kind of smiled at them a little bit.
I thought they made a good couple. I mean, they definitely worked well with each other and bounced off of each other really good. And you can see the little bit of humor back and forth and little comments and everything. I think they were definitely good for each other.
Right. I would say, and I wonder if you guys would agree with this. I feel like this is also one of the very few movies I've seen where Mrs. Claus takes a central role. Most of the time, she is pure support. But like here, it's clear she helps run the business. She might even be doing more of the business aspect of it, it seems, in Santa. Looks like he's more in charge of the production and delivery, if you will.
Yes.
I agree. The character of Mrs. Claus has always been more of a sidekick character, which, in all intents and purposes, Mrs. Claus, to me, is just as important to me in the Santa Claus story, because just like any husband and a wife, they need someone grounding. Or Santa Claus always needs someone grounding to help him through some of the most toughest decisions.
Right.
Well, I do like that she basically when the chips are down, she pulls out all the stops at the end to come after the guy after he theoretically kills Santa.
Right.
And that's pretty good. I mean, she takes out that gun and she just pulls out. She finishes him off. So that shows that she can also be badass when she wants to.
Right. Now they certainly don't scrimp on her as a cook. It's very, very clear that that what's that?
Lots of cookies.
Yes, but it's very clear that not only do the elves appreciate them, but that Santa can't stay away. Actually, one of the funnier things I thought was that he keeps sneaking. What's that?
He kept stealing cookies.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I found it kind of amusing that he keeps sneaking cookies. It's kind of yeah, but again, like I said, there was
definitely needed more pizza and burgers or whatnot, and vegetables. Maybe.
What's that?
A little. I said that cafeteria definitely needed a bit more of real food.
As the captain was saying, and like I said, there was that nice little interchange between Captain Jacobs and Seven, where they're eating all. I mean, they're looking at. It reminded me of Elf and the way that Buddy's diet was like so high on sugar, and it was like, but here it's like all sugar all the time. And the Elf straight says, well, we eat a high sugar, high carb diet 6 times a day, and the colonel's the captain's like, well, you can't get very far on that, and he's like, how what do you do for sleep or whatever? And he's like, oh, well, you take a 20-minute nap every 24 hours or something like that.
I think it was an 8-hour nap.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I think it was an 8-hour nap.
No, it wasn't 8 hours. It was minutes. I want to say it was 20 minutes, but maybe it was 20 minutes every 8 hours or something like that. I can't remember, but it was something that was like, but and then they said that basically I think they said that something that kept them young that had to do with their diet and whatever. It had something to do with, I guess, them being more
something about is that what Santa needs to keep him young? He's like, nope. It's his good cheer, good tidings.
Yeah, he stays young because of good cheer or something like that. Yeah, it was. But actually, another kind of humorous little part in the movie was where they're talking about the hard times that they've had to go through, and Mrs. Claus mentions the time where she tried baking vegan cookies, and or I think she said like vegan and gluten-free or something like that, and she's like, we got through that. And but you let me know, that's one of their things is they let each other know when they need a little kick in the pants. She's like, well, you let me know. And he's like, well, that was more of a self-preservation thing.
He barely survived, and he said something about barely surviving it.
Right. Which I admit is funny. I admit I have played around a lot with vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free. I'm trying really hard to fix my diet, and so I'm toying with all this stuff. But there are certain things that just aren't the same, and I get that, there. But I found it kind of interesting the way they played that up as a major marital rough patch. It's kind of amusing. So really much of the film we've kind of been skipping around, but There's a few other characters. Captain Jacobs is a pretty big character. I don't know if y'all want to get into him or not. I didn't feel like he's that well developed, but he's
developed, but not entirely
Yeah.
developed. I mean, he's there. I mean,
he basically
he's
pretty much
basically
represents the military.
Yeah, he's there to be in charge of this project, and he's there to be killed. So
yeah. And then you had, again, Seven basically represents the elves. Seven's played by Eric Wolf. Captain Jacobs is played by Robert Buckstyle. There's also Sandy, the barkeep, the local barkeep. We find that Santa actually spends a fair bit of time in the bar. And we have this interesting scene where she is flirting hard with this guy at the bar. And she goes back to get a bottle of whiskey or something. And Santa sidles over and addresses the guy by name and asks about after the wife and kids. It basically sends him running, out of guilt. He's like, if you get going now, I guess you get on, what do you say, 12 hours? But basically, and Sandy comes out and knows exactly what's up. And she's like, how come every time you come in here, I go home alone? It's like, but he basically, one of the things that he does throughout the movie is one of the little bits of magic that this Santa does have is basically he can look at you and know your deal. He knows who you are. He knows what you're on about. He knows who's naughty and who's nice, as they say. I think it's Herman that basically is the local postmaster. He's a pretty big role, but overall, the main ones that you've got, we've already kind of gone over.
Yep.
The plot, pretty much, we've hit most of the big stuff. It's pretty much Santa adjusting to the new situation of having to work with the military, him and the wife just generally adjusting, him very much on the outs with Christmas, not feeling the spirit, not feeling like, just feeling like the world's gone to shit, and how much longer can he's thinking about hanging up the hat, basically. And the military thing is kind of eventually gets to the point where they're starting to look a little rosier, a little happier. And then we got a lot of scenes of the kid going about his business and the skinny man on his way to, well, first of all, he does his usual web search and just strikes out hard on trying to find out where Santa is. And I particularly like where he calls information and the guy's like, I need an area. Give me an area. And so finally he looks at like, okay, well, Ellis, this town on Ellesmere Island, is this the furthest north? He's like, yes. He's like, so this town here, I need a listing for Kris Kringle. And the guy hangs up the phone immediately. It's like,
well, what would you expect?
well, I like how the guy kept him on the phone for so long until he came right out and said, I'm looking for Kris Kringle. And then, but he ultimately hits on a great idea. He goes to the local post. He finds a mailman doing his rounds. And the mailman tells him who to talk to. And then, of course, he kills the mailman because, he's a little trigger happy. And then he goes into the local post office, which is also a bloodbath, but not before he finds out the destination. He finds out a postal box where all of Santa's mail goes. And that's when he calls the kid and says, okay, things are in motion. I'm hitting the road. I'll keep you posted. And so much of the film is him going. Did they say where the kid is?
I don't remember.
I'm guessing it must have been New York, because it's pretty clear.
No,
What's up?
I'm not sure.
It seems pretty clear that the certainly much of the movie was filmed in Ontario. Apparently, that pet stop that he went to is in Ontario. I don't remember if they explicitly stated that any of it was in Ontario, but since a lot of it was filmed there, they may have let that implication lie. Whatever the case, he's on the road for several days and nights. But if he was going from New York, it would make sense that it would be such a long trip. Whatever the case, he's on the road for several days.
It seems like I think he might have been going there because he had to go through the border.
Well, he had to go through the border twice.
Thing.
He had to go through the border twice.
Yeah.
Because he was in the lower 48 and Santa's in Alaska. So, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think he did cross a good chunk of Canada. So a lot of the trip is just his trip, getting there, scenes of him playing with the hamster. There's the scene where the kid is playing with his Christmas present, and it's a little plane, and he looks at it and sees it made in Santa's workshop, and he offers the kid, what was it that he gave? Was it $100? Was it $500? It was a lot of money.
I think it was $100 in the end.
Yeah, I think it was like $100. But yeah, for a kid
first
like
he
that,
offered him 200, but that was like,
yeah. I think for a kid like that, that's probably more money he's ever seen. You gotta wonder what his old man thought when he came back to the car. What's up? Were you saying something, Tammy?
I was just saying, I think he bought him out at 150.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, so he has those scenes. There was the scene we mentioned in the pet shop, things like that. And ultimately, he gets up to Alaska, and he finds out that, he finds the post office, and he goes in and pretends to be a friend of Chris's. And the postmaster is pretty nice to him, but when he presses, the guy just tells him straight up, I really, truly can't tell you where he is. I don't know. Apparently Chris kind of just has a P.O. box, supposedly on first name only, with no attached address, apparently. At least that's what the postmaster claims, but certainly seems possible. And obviously, Chris has been using that place for some time. He probably has been using it for much longer than that guy's even been alive. So, maybe he set it up with a name originally, and or maybe he set it up so long ago that they didn't even care about that back then. But whatever the case, he kind of whiffs and misses, but he then decides to do a surveillance setup. And sure enough, before long, a big red pickup comes up. Oh, that's what it was. The bartender comes in while he's there, and he makes some BS thing about Chris's green Chevy. And she's like, no, he drives a Ford, red Ford. I think she said red Ford pickup. And so he knew what to look for. So he goes across the street, sets up surveillance, and I guess a day later, maybe, Santa comes in with his pickup, and he was going to take him out right there, but a big truck got in the way, so he follows him, and he ends up back, on the compound, as it were. Oh yeah, we did have a scene before that where he went shopping and got the necessities, but and that was kind of amusing where he's looking at all the coats on the rack and making disparaging comments about all of them. And finally the shopkeep's like, well, what are you looking for? And he shows him
what you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, he shows him a ski getup that's like all white. And so he ends up buying the whole thing. And that's what we see here in the picture, that ski suit. He comes in, he takes out the guards. They're present at the outskirts. And then he comes onto the compound, storms the actual building. Turns out Santa and the missus are having sexy times and are not in the building. They're in a different building. And so he storms the workshop, basically kills all the soldiers, and ends up blowing the place up. And then Santa, that's about when Santa, Seven had called him to say, we're under attack. So Santa had rushed out as quickly as he could, or Chris, or whatever. I keep saying Santa, but they really don't call him that very often in the film. Chris comes out sporting a couple of guns. Actually, earlier in the film, we had seen him place them under the bed after coming home one from Christmas night. But you don't really get a good look at what he's putting under the bed. But when they get that call from Seven, he pulls the box out, and it's a couple of guns, pistols of different sizes and calibers. And he, and actually, I should mention the first time that he comes back from his rounds early in the film, he's bleeding out of a hole in his side, which he tells Mrs. Claus the next day. Some kids shot him with a deer rifle. And, he says something about a healing in the usual way. So you get the impression that Santa definitely has a greater than human level of healing, but that he definitely still feels it. And so he carries those guns for protection, obviously, which, again, something you don't usually hear in a Santa fable. And he goes and gets those guns and marches out ready to face his attacker. That's where he has the confrontation with the skinny man, calls him by name, says, look, I know you went very wrong at a very young age, but, it's, they have that little moment where, like, he's like, this is the only thing you ever gave me, and he throws the car at him and whatever. And then, of course, they get into a gunfight. Chris does pretty good for himself. He holds his own pretty well and gets in a couple nice shots in.
Well,
what's up?
Well, he shows, you see it earlier on when he takes a hit.
Yeah.
Earlier in the movie that, Miss Claus has to help him doctor.
Yeah.
Is that, he does have to deal with a lot of people shooting at him from time to time. So he's ready to take on a threat.
Yeah. And actually, they did have a scene of him earlier as well, shooting at some cans and stuff. The requisite, if you're going to have an enormous ranch land out in the middle of nowhere, obviously you're going to shoot cans off a post.
Well, of course.
For kids.
Depending on how you look at it, that circle could be the barrel of a gun. And we did have an interesting scene as well of the hitman doing his own training session earlier on. But they both are relatively evenly matched. But at the end of the day, Chris gets a couple good shots off, but he actually ends up getting, and not just with the gun, he straight hits the skinny man right upside the head with a log. Couldn't have felt very good. But ultimately, the hitman seems to get one up. He shoots Santa. I want to say he shoots him in the back, and then he moves in and shoots him through the eye. And you think that's it. You think Santa's done for. That's when the missus comes out firing.
He missed it. He stabbed him.
Stabbed him. Right. Right. That's because he had that.
And he took that big ass knife and he put it right through him. Twice.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I think is interesting about it, is that you're right that they don't show magic, but there is some magic implied.
Yes.
Like with the elves and their diet and what they can do, or Santa just suddenly showing up at that kid's house at the end, or recovering from being shot directly in the head like that.
Now, more on that in a minute, but yes. But like I said, the missus comes out ready to defend.
Obviously, he was stabbed through his chest. He was stabbed through his chest.
Yeah.
So,
and you hear him wheezing. It sounds like one of his lungs. What's that?
He shouldn't have come back when they shot him through the eye.
He should not have come back from that.
But
well, you hear him wheezing because it's obvious his lung got, punctured or something through that, Yeah, that was I don't know. That wouldn't have necessarily taken him out immediately, I think, but it sure would have not been pleasant.
The shot in the head definitely wouldn't. But,
the shot in the head would have been a little different.
But like I said, magic is implied.
Right.
Just in the fact that he is still making those deliveries every year on Christmas night. That is impossible otherwise.
Yes.
So there is magic implied. They just don't show it like in Violent Night. In Violent Night, they do show it, but here they more imply that it exists.
Right. Which is why I say it's more magical realism. Like the magic is there, but it's portrayed in a very down-to-earth sort of where it's almost not portrayed. Again, you see the effects of it, But so basically, as we said before, Mrs. Claus is the one who takes the hitman out. Like she comes out, he gets a shot off on her too, but she does. I think he gets a couple shots on her, but she definitely takes him out. And then we have basically we have a couple of other scenes later on where the big one that Brandon was just mentioning, and this is a great scene, is where the kid finds out that the grandmother has just found out someone's stealing from her. Like basically, I think he's eavesdropping on her, or else he just happens by the room at the right time. But he finds out that she is about to go medieval on somebody. And he was not going to let it be him. So he sneaks into her room, grabs some of her pills, and then he tells the maids, clear out. I want everyone out of the house. And he goes in his room and he starts trying to create a cocktail that should kill his grandmother.
Well, and definitely will kill with what he was using. Definitely would kill.
Yeah.
I mean, fentanyl.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, that's kind of amusing how we found that out. Because, so right then we hear a knock on the door. And of course, he's like, I said I don't want anyone to disturb or something, snooty like that. I don't want to be disturbed, or I said everyone needs to leave. He said something to that effect. Doesn't really matter. It was Helga, I think, is the lead nurse. And he's like, or not nurse. made. He's like, Helga, I said I wanted everyone gone or something, you know. And then that's when the missus opens the door and Santa comes along behind her and he's wearing an eye patch and he's moving with a cane and he's moving kind of slowly. So he's definitely still recovering, but he's definitely recovered a lot from that scene that we saw before. And he comes in and he just tells, he grabs the drink that the kid is fixing and chugs the whole thing. And he's like, fentanyl. Yeah, that would do it. It's like, which again, sign that he has a somewhat more than human constitution. Let's put it that way. But he basically he tells the kid, he's like, look, I took out your guy. He's gone. And he's like, and you've inspired me. You've inspired me to take a more proactive approach from here on. And he's like, so if little Connie, the girl at the science fair, I think her name was Connie, if she gets so much as a cold, if your grandmother meets an untimely end, et cetera, et cetera, he's like, you'll be seeing me again. And it will not be pleasant or it will not go well for you. Something, I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist of it. What do y'all think of that scene there?
Yeah, I think that.
I love the look on the kid's face. The kid's face was just.
It almost looks like he's about to shit his pants.
I totally agree. I think that. Go ahead, Tammy. Go ahead.
I love the look of the kid's face because he's like not even blinking, and you do see like these tears starting to well up, and he's just standing there. He doesn't know what to do or what to say. He's just, I think David kind of nailed it. I think he was, I think he might have soiled his pants.
Okay. Yeah, one of the lines, I was looking here through the quotes. One of the things he says to him is, he says, a wicked soul bent on vengeance and bloodshed came to my door, like you, Billy. He is buried. And then later he's like, I will come while you sleep. The fat man has got his eye on you, kid. It's pretty interesting.
I mean, to me, I find it funny because there's only two times in the entire series where that kid is off balance.
Yeah.
He's always, every part of that movie, he is always on top of things. He is always calm. He is always in control.
Right.
But there's two times that he's not. Once is when he loses that science fair and he's just so dumbfounded he doesn't understand.
Right.
And that has him like mumbling, but that's my ribbon. But
Yeah.
And he is totally off balance there. Whereas like all the rest of the movie, he is on balance totally. Nothing seems to actually unnerve him.
He shows a glimmer of it when he realizes that the grandmother is onto him. But you're right; it's not quite the same level. You're right. There are two times where it's a whole different level.
And the only other time is when he's caught and he realizes he's got no way out of that situation.
Right.
And it's glorious. It's totally glorious at the time. I cannot say how much I liked that part where he's just like, oh, fuck.
Right. I concur. And we also
I'm glad that there was an oh fuck moment.
Yeah. And we also see that that they're rebuilding the workshop, and they just generally, strangely enough, the movie has kind of a happy ending, you might say. Not so much for little Billy, but for nearly everyone else, because I guess you could say to use the I guess to borrow from another franchise, you could say that for much of the film, Santa has lost his mojo. But at the end of the film, he has got his mojo back, basically.
Which actually, in a way, you could say has a similarity to, our main, our other film that we talk about, Violent Night, where Santa is feeling like totally dead to the rest of the world because, in his opinion, the world is worthless. It doesn't have anything left. But then that little girl helps bring him back to who he was.
Right.
And that's what you find here as well. Not as big as that, probably, but still not bad.
Right. Yeah.
It's not as feel good as that, I should say. that was more of a feel good moment, which I still say is probably what makes me what I find is hilarious about that movie as anything else is they somehow mix that violence with a feel good family Christmas movie feeling, which I still don't know how they did that.
Indeed. I mean, again, this one has touches of it, but the Violent Night was a little bit more overt in most ways. I guess you could say in most ways. This one was a little more subdued, a little more muted. But yeah, a lot of similarities, but some differences. So, I guess that mostly does it for the story and characters. Does anyone else have anything they want to throw out or go over before we get into production?
Oh, let's just get into it.
Okay. So,
let's just get
into it. Okay.
Yep.
So, overall, what do y'all think of the production on this one? We've already kind of mentioned how they went for a much more of a real world vibe. So definitely, this is not like Santa Claus the movie where the workshop is all brightly colored toys for machines and everyone wearing polka dots. This is definitely a different sort of workshop.
This is totally the exact opposite of that.
Right. Almost exactly. Yeah. What do y'all think about the general production here?
I mean, it's a production.
Well, yeah, it's a production. I mean, I did like the look of the layout of the factory. I did like the way that Santa and Mrs. Claus were kind of like just these regular folks, struggling just like any of us would. If any of us were like business owners and down on their luck and couldn't exactly pay your employees, relying on that government check that the government is always trying to find a way to diminish that check. And does it seem like it's the United States government or the Canadian government?
Oh, it very explicitly is the United
Oh, it's U.S. government, yeah.
Yeah. Which again,
Okay,
he's not.
yeah,
He doesn't live in Canada. He lives in Alaska. So, yeah, it would make sense that it would be the government.
Well, you can see how the government looks out for the little people, right?
Yeah.
Well, even the military dude, he called them little people, and I know Santa and number 7 were looking at each other like, why don't you just call us elves?
Right.
You know, like, why diminish us? But in any case,
I think it was more he might
production
not believe.
wise though, I thought, yeah, I agree. But there were different areas that they needed to, like you had Skinny Man and lair, and where he, of course, you had the postal service, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the various different elves and whatnot. I mean, I actually thought the elves were quite cheery for the announcement that he actually had to make to them. So,
Oh yeah.
But yeah, production was pretty decent for what it was. I mean, they had to show a man struggling, you know. So they did.
Yeah. I think they personally, I think they did a really good job with the production. I think they did a really good the look of the compound was pretty solid. Again, it looked like just an old country farmhouse, really, on a bigger scale. The kids, the place where the kid lives, it looked suitably like they had some money. The compound where Skinny Man keeps his stuff was quite interesting. And then we got the music. We got some really incredible assortment of music here, I think. There was that one song called Mistletoe Madness that's by a group called the Crying Cactus Cowboys. I love that name. I need to see if there's more from them. That sounds amusing to me. But we had background music by the Mondo Boys. And personally, I really liked the music on this. What were y'all's thoughts on it?
It was pretty okay. I mean, I didn't really pay attention to the music this time around. I was more listening to, you know, what dialogue and storyline and all that jazz. So sorry.
That's all right. I mean, again, I kind of like the. I feel like it had a strong country vibe to it, which I think fit perfectly with the idea that this is like middle of nowhere Alaska. Seemed to work fine, but
I was kind of paying attention when it kept showing of it. The music kept changing. You know, when they did that montage of him in the car.
Yeah.
Right.
And he kept,
yeah.
It was this song, and there was this song, and there was this song, and, you know, I was kind of paying attention to that because I'm like, what song is going to be next?
that was actually kind of interesting where they were showing the hitman going across Canada, and it keeps showing like different times of day to show the passing of time, basically. But it's like every station, it was almost like the impression that I got, I guess the implication is that he may have not given a rat's ass about the music itself. He may have just had it blaring to help keep him awake. And it feels like he just kept it going with whatever station came on. Because the music in that montage was it was a variety. It was a variety. Anyway, so is there anything else that we didn't really specifically launch into this role, but I want to mention it real quick. This picture here shows Chris in what might be identifiable as a Santa-ish outfit, but for the most part in the film, he did not wear that kind of clothing. I think there might have only been a couple scenes where he was wearing red. Did y'all find that kind of an interesting departure from the norm, or is it just kind of just there?
A little bit, but with you got to bear in mind that they're trying to show like a realism type
Right.
world of Santa, where they're trying to make him look like he's just a regular guy, your average Joe. He's not no big magical creature. He's okay. Guy may live forever and may have a little bit of magic, but he's not that much different from us,
Mm-hmm.
So that's where
Alrighty. Alrighty. So, I guess that means it'd be about time for favorites.
Yep.
So let's say we'll do favorite scene and or line of dialogue, and what would be I guess not counting this one or Violent Night because we've talked so much about both of them. What would be your favorite Christmas action movie? Let's start with you, Tammy.
Let's see. So we're doing the scene from this movie. I like if we're doing this scene, I like when they confront the kid at the end. The whole thing there.
Right.
So I like that confrontation. That was just priceless. They'll get the whole look. The kids giving them.
Right.
Favorite action Christmas movie? David, do you remember the exact name of that one that I like? That Scrooge one?
Oh, which Scrooge? Oh, the one we did last year, the Christmas Carol with Guy Pearce in it. It's called The Christmas Carol.
Mm-hmm.
That's her favorite.
That's kind of action-y. I'll allow it. How about you, Brandon?
Well, if you're looking at it from Jacob Marley's point of view.
Well, for Christmas action film, I'd be Violent Night, which is the obvious choice.
Well, that's what I said. We've been saying that so many times. Like, I was going to say, we'll not count that one.
Die Hard.
I knew that was the other obvious choice, but no one's mentioned it yet. So there you go.
There you go. Die Hard. Well, one could also say Home Alone if you want to do a combination and make Violent Night.
You could.
I could see that as action, especially towards the end of it. But yeah, favorite scene for me, I guess that end scene where he shows up to the kid's office and downs that milk and is like basically putting that kid off guard when he'd been basically down the whole movie.
All right. How about you, Dave?
I have to admit, I liked various things having to do with this movie. I liked the little moments that Santa and Mrs. Claus had to get together. I do like the end where he basically scares the shit out of the kid. I do like that Mrs. Claus actually takes dude out, and for some reason, Santa Claus is able to regenerate back with, you know,
he got back all his last
And my favorite action film is The Night the Reindeer Died.
Okay. I don't know that I know that one, but is that a companion piece to The Night Santa Went Crazy?
No, it's a film that never was. It's from the trailer in Scrooged.
Oh, right, right.
Thanks a lot, Lee. You know, you've been a real good boy this year. Yes, you sure have.
Good times.
It's either that or the one that Tim Allen was describing in the Santa Claus. Here we go with Santa Claus coming in with a Panzer.
Well, you could say Santa's sleigh.
You could. I mean, I guess that's considered horror, but it is action heavy.
But yeah, there we have it. My second would be Home Alone, but
okay. All right. Well, I think it's unanimous that little shit getting schooled by Chris Kringle was glorious. That was just a great moment. But I want to mention other scenes too. And again, I will say some of the scenes with Santa and the Missus, I'll agree with Dave on that. But again, the scene on the factory floor where he's trying to tell the elves that, hey, we have new bosses, basically. I just the emotion in that scene, I like that. It stuck with me. So there were a few good, and the scene in the pet shop was pretty fun too, with the way the skinny man finally snaps, but very calmly, but in a way that clerk was not going to forget. I thought that was quite interesting. So there were some good moments, but again, the little kid getting his comeuppance, that was worth the price of admission there. As far as for me, I do have to admit it's kind of hard not to go with Home Alone or Die Hard, or now that you got me thinking about Santa's Sleigh. But actually a movie that I have sitting in the queue waiting to be watched, and I'm probably going to try to watch it this week, that I almost put forward for this year, and I might next year. Shane Black, much like I guess Richard Donner seems to have done this too, Shane Black really likes setting his movies at Christmas. And of the bunch, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a great fun movie that is probably one of the most thematically Christmas of the bunch. So I'm going to have to mention that one, and I'm also going to have to mention Batman Returns. Because good solid Christmas action films there. We did cover Batman Returns a couple years ago, right? I feel like Forrest brought that one forward.
Yeah, I do think we did.
Yeah. So that was
because I think we covered Batman and Batman Returns. I don't think we covered Forever or anything beyond that.
I think we separately did Batman and Robin at a different time because Dane wanted to do it. But yeah, eventually we'll have to hit some of the others. But anyway, I guess that about does her for Fatman. Unless anyone has any last minute stuff they want to toss out, I'll hand it back to Dave.
That I know of presently, but anyone else? So let's go into our outros just to tell you folks a little bit about ourselves, what we do. Tammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, I go on this channel and another one with my fiance David and talk about movies with everybody and listen to their opinions. In the summertime, I'm busy with my car. And, well, I just got a new job, so we'll see how that goes.
Alrighty, heading over to Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right. Well, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World YouTube channel that's on the air occasionally. And also keep myself pretty busy most of the time with this, that, and the other, including some side projects that both Brandon and Dave are spearheading. And I'm sure they'll have some things to say on some of those. But also, I got my full-time job. Keeps things pretty busy. Although I'm going to have a nice little break coming up for the holidays, and that'll be pretty cool. It's rare that I get actual breaks. But I do try to watch some stuff. I watch enough to keep join these fine folks every week for our discussions. And, of course, we always have some good holiday viewing going on in December. That's always a must. And I think that'll probably about do it for me for this go around. I think I was kind of hoping we'd get more on this discussion because I think most of the people in the group probably would have enjoyed this, but such is life. Anyway.
Yep. Alrighty, heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm a part of a channel called SeptumSin versus the World. We like physical media, and we are slowly but surely bringing the channel to life a little bit at a time. This month, we've been doing something called the Unusual Christmas Chronicles, or I should say I have, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, up until Christmas Day, I will be talking about Christmas movies that are normally not movies, shorts, that are not normally on the radar of most people. Now, our most recent one is the 13 Sleighs Till Christmas. And I've had quite a few cool ones on there, like Xmas and so on. So you should check it out. I've got them all on a playlist. And of course, if you want to, you can always binge it. They're very short episodes, 5 to 10 minutes long. So you could load up the playlist Christmas Day and watch them from beginning to end if you wanted to. But every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until, well, next week. We also have a Christmas episode that's going to go up Monday, which is going to be there. It's nothing big. It's just our typical gift exchange that we do on the air. And then, of course, I have a trailer for Amityville Webcam, which went up. Movie is actually done. I'm waiting to hear back from the U.S. government about my copyright. And then I'm going to be seeking publication. So some fun stuff. Matter of fact, a closed group of us will actually be watching it for the first time tomorrow night. Who knows? Maybe you might be one of the special ones that gets a link. But that's all I got for that.
Alrighty. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous Christmas journey that we've been going along. We're still inside Santa's sleigh, and we're stuck inside for winter, at least until our chocolate calendars are up for when we gather around with our families on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So it's very possible you might have to listen to us after the holidays, but I'm sure we'll surprise you. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we go on and talk about various movies at different points of time. If you get a chance, Delusions of Grandeur just did a mountainous study on the Ant-Man trilogy recently on our channel. So check out that discussion. We covered all 3 Ant-Man films in that Marvel MCU universe that a lot of people call beautiful. But in any case, as far as movie news, I'm also in Brandon's Amityville webcam, and I believe he is and has just put together a nice little trailer for it that eventually he's going to release. So look out for that. And we are almost on putting together the first film of mine for Tales of the Forgotten. It's just there's some small details about posters and whatnot that I'll have to look into and all that jazz. So hopefully we'll have some more news on that stuff after the holidays. So like, share, and subscribe. Sorry it's been a slow process, but did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, I was going to say, of course.
Okay. And that note, everyone say good night.
If we do next week, it'll be the animated Grinch. If it's not next week, then we'll hit the Grinch still. It'll just be not the original animated Grinch, the newer one with Benedict Cumberbatch, I believe, is the one who voices him in that one. So that'll be in that'll either be next week or in January, one of those two. But we'll see how that goes. Would it be all right if I let us out with the trailer?
Sure thing.
All right.
All right.
Throw that on there. If it watch it not work this time around.
SeptumSin versus the world!
Once in a lifetime, a film is made that is so epic, so spectacular, that it captures the public's consciousness on a level they've never seen before. This is not that film.
This movie, I don't even know where to begin. The production value is maybe in the negatives.
What the fucking hell, Amiibo webcam? Ridiculous. I've had about enough of these fucking Amiibo movies. There ain't any fucking titties in the fucking movie! Why wasn't there any fucking titties in the fucking horror movie?
Amityville webcam. See it in the year of our Lord, 2024. A film so terrible, it will drive you mad.
There we go.
All right. Something to look forward to.
Oh yeah.
Maybe.
I'm definitely looking forward to the because Brandon's going to let us see a small screening of the film before he eventually releases it. So I'm looking forward to at least that. I won't tell you when, but we are going to see it. But in any case,
All righty.
like, share, and subscribe. Let us know down in the comments what you thought of our thoughts on Fatman, and just go out and see it. So everyone say good night and Merry Christmas, everyone.
Good night, everyone. And Merry Christmas
Happy
and happy
holidays.
holidays.
Joyeux Noel.
Yeah, joyeux Noel.
May or may not see each other on said holidays.